Awesome. All right, so I'm going to introduce you a little bit, if that's cool. So Kelsey Celerud is amazing, guys. You guys are very lucky to have her here with us, and you can see in her background, that's her office and her private practice, which she can talk to you guys about. But Kelsey is a licensed clinical social worker, and she mostly works with little ones, 0 to 7, Kelsey, or a little bit older.
Yeah. It goes all the way up the age range, but yeah, specialize in births to 5.
Yeah. And she also is consulting with a specific case for me. And she's done some trainings with me, but she also works at a community mental health clinic, and she's just all around an awesome clinician and human. So I'm going to let her kind of get going. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, and then we'll get into students' questions.
Sure. Well, thank you. And I'm so happy to be here and share the space with all of you. Hope everyone's doing well despite all the technical difficulties and the wind and all that good stuff. So yes, I am a licensed clinical social worker. I started out my career following graduate school at a community mental health clinic here in San Fernando Valley. And through there, I was able to move from direct practice, doing a bunch of different evidence-based practices in like outpatient setting to a supervisor position, So now I do clinical supervision for social work interns. I do training for birth to 5 kind of competencies, what you do with young kids in therapy. I do consultation with anybody in the agency that wants to be thinking about trauma, be thinking about development and how to do therapy with little ones. And then some individual supervision for people. So that's what I do in the mornings for my job. And then in the afternoons, I do have my own private practice where I get to utilize all those wonderful skills in my private practice. And I work with kids as young as right now, my youngest is just turned 1, and then my oldest is 42. But I specialize with the young ones. So a lot of my clients are within the preschool to early childhood age. So I do play therapy. I'm trained in EMDR, if anyone are familiar with that. And child parent psychotherapy are kind of the main modalities that I use. I'm endorsed by the endorsement board in California as a early childhood mental health specialist. And I'm also in the process of becoming a endorsed reflective supervisor. I do consultations, like Nikki said, and supervision, and I love it. I love being able to have all the different hats. So I'm all ears for any questions. Hopefully that was clear enough and not rambling too much, but yeah, I'd love to hear what kind of questions you have or concerns or a thing that wasn't clear. Whatever you need, I'm here.
Can you explain what EMDR is to my students? Most of them probably have no idea what that is.
Yes, I'll do my best. So EMDR is a method in therapy specifically for people that have trauma or anxiety or some pretty severe depression or eating disorder. It stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a mouthful. And what that is basically, it's a way of doing therapy where you access neural networks in the brain by using bilateral stimulation, meaning you're activating both sides of the brain. So I'm sure you guys know that you have a left and right hemisphere. Each hemisphere does its own stuff, right? You have your corpus callosum that connects the two. So you're using either eye movements where it's either using your hand. Sorry, I need some water. 1 second. Using your hand, using light beams, or you can use vibrating buzzies on either side, or tapping to basically simulate REM while you're awake. So when you are in REM sleep, your brain is doing a lot of processing and kind of thinking through things, thinking about your day, trying to make sense of stuff, which is why you have some pretty awesome dreams and probably some really weird dreams that don't seem to make sense. But EMDR is able to simulate REM and then process traumatic memories in the moment. So the idea is not so you forget traumatic memories or negative self-beliefs, but you're actually able to decrease the emotional charge that is attached to those experiences, those memories, those feelings. It's awesome. It sounds like a sci-fi situation, but I myself have received it as a part of my training for EMDR, and it's awesome. And it is one of the beautiful things that you can do. It's a tool that I use with my adult clients, but also all the way down to my baby clients. So it's fascinating and super wonderful.
And how long was your training for that? I'm just curious that when you did that training specifically.
Yeah, it was 6 days, I believe. So it was 3 days, one weekend, and then 3 days another weekend, and then you do 20 consultation calls with a MDRIA is kind of the like overarching board for EMDR, approved consultants. So that's where you present cases and you talk about the challenges you have with EMDR. Once you've done the initial training, the 20 consultation calls, then you can become like you're technically finished your training. If you want to become certified through MDRIA, it's a whole nother like level. But after your initial training and consultation, after your initial training, you can have clients. And then after you complete the calls, that's when you get your certificate of completion of the training.
There is a lot of opportunities to have further education, bottom line.
Oh yeah.
So, and we both do many of those things, and just adding on more letters to our name and getting as kind of, and I think this is really about our clients more so, Kelsey, is really how do we best serve our families and our kiddos and the clients that we work with, is doing a lot of these kinds of different CE units. So I actually am going to be taking some, I need to find some through Kelsey, some trauma transformed care kind of specific training myself. So depending on kind of what you guys want to get into, like I said, Kelsey is a licensed, social worker. So I'm going to open it up to you guys for questions for her, and it can be about professional development, where she went to school. So if you guys want to throw it in the chat or even raise your hand, either way is totally fine. And then if it's in the chat, Kelsey, I'll just read it to you and then you can kind of go from there. So, all right. So let's open it up to your guys' questions. Anybody dying to ask her something? All right, here we go. We got our first one from Riley. She says, what are the different areas you do in social work? And then I'll go to her next question after that.
Different areas. So I correct me if I'm wrong. So, Riley, feel free to unmute and say that's not my question at all. I'm guessing you're asking if I do micro, meso, or macro social work.
So what I was asking is what are all the different opportunities in social work? Because in my 310 class, I learned like a bunch of different things you can do, but I just wanted to hear it from you as well.
Yeah. I am clearly partial to social work degrees. Sorry, Nikki. Because
I'm partial to MFTs. It's okay.
Right. So you see different sides of the spectrum. Yeah. I think that MSW degrees actually gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of what you would like to do. So I went to USC for my master's in social work, and they had different kind of micro social work, meaning like the direct practice, right? I'm in therapy, I'm doing case management, I'm doing, kind of the one-on-one direct work where I'm providing the service. Then they have meso social work, which is kind of more in like the community level, right? So I'm doing trainings, I'm doing consultations, I'm doing supervision, I'm kind of I'm coming to classes and doing a presentation every so often, right? Where I'm seeing and meeting and impacting a larger group. And then my macro social work, which is higher level. I'm doing policy. I'm not doing it, but you can impact policy, be a lobbyist, right? You can be writing grants. I had a grant writing class in my graduate program where I got to like pick a topic that I thought was really important and I was passionate about, and then I wrote a grant and seeing if I would get any money to do the thing. Nikki knows about grant writing, which you can do with any degree really. But there is direct training on those things. In social work, you can become a school social worker, right? It's basically like a school therapist, but they call it a psychiatric social worker. You have your own private practice. You can work in community mental health. You can be in Congress. You have one of those. You can be a teacher. So there's a lot of different things that you can utilize your degree for. Advocacy, social justice issues, you name it. So I loved it because I got a full kind of array of thinking about how not just the individual or family system impacts a person's function and like their ability to be healthy and well in the world, but also what the community impact, the country's impact, the world's impact, right? Impact of poverty, impact of discrimination, all of those wonderful things that, not some of them are not wonderful, but wonderful things to be aware of and to be integrating into your work. That makes sense.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
I
And
hope that
then,
answered your question.
yes.
Definitely. Thank you.
Sure.
And where did you find out where where did you do your internship? Let's talk about that. So your practicum, where did you do your practicum at?
Sure. So I got to do two different ones in my graduate program. You have one that USC just kind of places you in and you don't get much say. And then the second year you identify a specialty or kind of your area that you would like to deepen your understanding and knowledge with. So the first year I actually was at Granada Hills Charter High School, and I was working with the school psychiatric social worker. So I ran groups and I saw students individually and for mental health issues, suicidality, stress from school, those on the autism spectrum, trying to figure out what is social skill, like what does social life look like in high school, and a lot of academic pressure. Because if any of you have been to Granada, like have attended Granada or know anything about Granada, is yeah, okay, I see some hands. Like it's pretty intense, right? Yeah, and like it's not. It hasn't let up at all. So if you were there within the last 20 years or so, potentially you knew who Dr. Barbara Ackerman was. So that's who I. Oh yay, Mary, you went there. So that was my first placement. She was my supervisor. She started, gave me the ropes. My second year, my specialty was families and children. And so I worked at Providence St. John's Child Development Center. So Providence St. John, class of 2018, woo! Providence has, a few different hospitals, and within the hospitals, they have different, programs. They have different, like offshoots, right? So this was affiliated with St. John's, but it was an outpatient clinic. And they had a bunch of different funding sources, grants, Medi-Cal, all these wonderful things. And so I actually got to work in two different programs at the time. So St. John had a therapeutic preschool, which is where kids with social, emotional, and developmental challenges go. It's a little bit more, well, think of the word, it's a therapeutic preschool, right? So they're smaller, everyone has a therapist. The therapists work very closely with the teachers and the students. They had an outpatient program where I got trained in some evidence-based practices there. So I got to see outpatient clients there. And then they also had a program that was called the Youth Development Project, where I would go into local middle schools and do group therapy and see some kids on campus. So I got to kind of have the best of all the worlds in, practicing what does a therapeutic preschool look like, and what is outpatient like, and then what does school-based therapy look like as well within a younger population. I loved both of my experiences, and with St. John's, they do a lot of incredible training. I felt like I came out of grad school with a lot more knowledge than my peers, because I had evidence-based trainings. I think I had 3 that I had been trained in. And I also knew Department of Mental Health paperwork, which if you are going to start out in a community mental health agency and you don't know it, it's really challenging and hard. And I came in being like, give me that assessment. Let's do this. Right. So it was wonderful that, and you, with those practicums, I don't know how it works at CSUN, but you interview for them and they kind of place you to see if you're a good match.
Yeah. The paperwork, I would say, and I think Kelsey would probably agree with me, is a major disadvantage, but it's something we have to do for funding. But the Department of Mental Health paperwork is crazy. I would have friends that would literally spend their whole Sunday doing their paperwork, right? And that's like above and beyond. So when you have that many clients and you're doing community mental health, that's a big downfall for a lot of people if that's not their forte. I think Kelsey is pretty type A. I'm just going to keep it really real with you guys that she can handle paperwork like that. But just again, and I keep telling my students this, just understand what you're getting yourself into in regards to grad school, in regards to your profession, know your strengths and definitely know your weaknesses. I hire people that do better for my weaknesses. So just keeping it really 100 with you guys, there's different ways to handle that and to deal with it. So it's an interesting way of doing that. All right, our next question, let me go back in the chat here, was from Lisette. She said, what is your educational background? So let's go back to undergrad first, Kelsey,
Sure.
and then go from there.
Sure. I got my bachelor's. I went straight from high school to a four-year university. I went to UC Santa Barbara, and I majored in psychology, and then I had a minor in like clinical psychology and child development. So my senior year, I got to do some like pre-practicum. I got to work in a I think it was kindergarten classroom supporting some children. I always knew that I wanted to be a helper. My family jokes that I said when I was little, I either wanted to be a librarian or a therapist. And I'm so glad I chose therapy because I don't know if I would be, able to do the things I want to do on a librarian salary, which usually they're volunteers. But so I kind of knew that, working with people, working with the brain and kind of putting those two together was something I wanted to do. So I got my BA there. I took a year and a half off between graduating undergrad to grad school. Actually, 2 years. And I worked for an applied behavior analysis agency. So I worked with children on the spectrum, doing home visiting. And so I would do that and gave me a lot of good basic knowledge on home visiting and working with different populations of people from low income to high income, from, very low functioning to higher functioning folks. And then I actually worked there through my first semester of grad school. I then worked as a case manager at a local congressman's office that I got from doing a project at USC. I lobbied him for doing some like medical intervention. He was like, "You're good. You want a job?" And I'm like, "Sure." And so I got to do some kind of case management, social work stuff there, and then completed my MSW at USC. Following that, I did some educational opportunities on the side, like Nikki was saying. Most recently, I graduated a infant and parent mental health fellowship through UC Davis. It's called the Napa Fellowship. If you are interested in working with birth to 5 or young children in any capacity, as a preschool teacher, as a therapist, as an occupational therapist, whatever it may be, it's one of the highest ranking educational opportunities that you can have. And it's incredible. You get to work with people that you probably are going to be reading about or have read about in your textbooks. And you get to have like one-on-one conversations with them, and it's amazing. And now I'm continuing that program to, like I said, work towards some reflective supervision. So I can be endorsed to do that as well.
Never a dull moment, right?
No, not one bit. No.
Yeah, no, definitely not. All right. Next question. Let's get into this one. Oh, we have some UCSB folk here. Riley, you went to UCSB for a little bit?
I went to the city college for a bit.
Oh, gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I was like, oh, that's good.
Not that smart.
Oh, yeah.
Don't say that. You were
Yes,
smart
you
enough.
are.
You were smart enough to know that if you're going to go to a city college, you should do it in Santa Barbara. So I'm giving you kudos right there because
Hey, I would have to agree with that.
Yeah.
So yes. All right. Our next question. All right. This is from Yesenia. She says, what does your typical day look like? Kelsey's is very different from most people. So let's hear what your typical day looks like, Kelsey.
Well, I'll give you I'll tell you what my day today is and give you an idea. So I started my work at 8 a.m. I did a little bit of paperwork. At 9 a.m., I met with one of my supervisees for her clinical supervision for an hour. From 10 to 11, I had another group supervision for clinicians that work with birth to 5, doing child parent psychotherapy. At 11, I did a consultation with this is all in community mental health. At 11, I did a consultation with a clinician who has a new case with a person that has some very severe trauma. She came from the Congo and is really trying to manage. She left, was an orphan by her family, was imprisoned, was, really severely tortured, and now she's adopted by a white family in the San Fernando Valley, trying to be a 14-year-old. So we did a consultation on that. And then at 12, I had a private practice client come. I had a private practice client. Here I am at 2. And then 3, 4, 5, I have private practice clients. Ranging from 4, I think my youngest today is 4, and my oldest today is 7. So this is a crazy day. Some days I get a lunch break, I promise. But I kind of have all different hats, right? So because I work essentially 2 jobs, I have mornings in my community health agency, which, I'm able to do that sort of work. And then the afternoon I generally have for my private practice, and then additional training opportunities. Excuse me. I'm a part of a couple of like ongoing consult groups and, additional kind of like training groups that we meet on a monthly basis. And then I'm also on a board of California Association of Infant Mental Health. And so we meet also once a month to talk about how we're going to get the word out on infant mental health in California. So they're busy. That's my answer, is they're busy, but they're also, every day is different, which is what I love. If you are working kind of in community, a day before, when I was doing strictly community mental health work, it would look like meetings and trainings in the morning and, group supervision. And then I would have home visits some of the days where I'd drive to, Pacoima to Santa Clarita to Van Nuys to, wherever for sessions in people's homes. And then some of the time I'd have them sessions in my office. But now I don't do direct practice in my community mental health work, and in my private practice, I don't go to people's homes. They come to me, or we're online, depending on what's going on.